There's still time to begin again. A phrase that echoes like a quiet whisper of hope in the deepest silences of the soul. Sometimes reconnecting isn't a brand new path. It's the rediscovery of something that's always been there, waiting to be seen. As if, in the space where everything seems to be unraveling, an invisible thread emerges, weaving together every lost fragment. And it's in that silence that we understand. There's a delicate dance between who we were and who we can still become. As if each step is an attempt to reconcile the past with the present. But there's something few people notice in this invitation to begin again. Something that goes beyond the simple idea of trying one more time. It's not just about erasing the pain or forgetting the scars, but about allowing every mark to become the fertile ground from which a new understanding grows. Because deep down, life never asked us to be perfect, just to stay open to mindful love, even when everything feels lost. So, this video becomes a kind of portal, a path that reaches beyond easy answers and comfortable shortcuts. Here, each word carries a breath of spirituality and connection, an invitation to turn inward and recognize that behind every fracture there's a secret the soul has kept safe. What Chico Xavier reveals to us isn't just a lesson, but a calling to hear what life whispers to us in our quietest moments. So, I invite you to stay with me on this journey. But be warned, what we're about to explore here doesn't reveal itself all at once. There are truths that need to be felt, not explained. Truths that must be lived, not just understood. Because in the end, the answer you're looking for might already be hidden in some forgotten corner of your heart, and it's right there that everything starts to unfold. 1. The difference between love and dependency. To love is to set free, not to imprison. Chico Xavier. There's a subtle, almost imperceptible whisper that distinguishes mindful love from dependency in disguise. Like a gentle breeze brushing the trees on a quiet morning, true love doesn't need chains or empty promises. It blooms in freedom, in the subtle touch of someone who understands that connection doesn't depend on possession. Yet so often, we mistake the warmth of an embrace for the need to never let go. And so, what we call love becomes an echo of our own emptiness. What few understand is that this thin line between love and dependency appears the moment we forget who we are. Emotional dependency grows from the fear of facing the quiet within, when all we want is to fill that emptiness with someone else's presence. But mindful love, it grows from the fertile ground of self-care, where every act of affection celebrates freedom rather than patching old voids. Like the flame of a candle flickering in the dark, love shows up as light, not as a prison. But in dependency, that flame slowly fades, smothered by the demand for the other to become our sun. Perhaps that's why so many relationships turn into battlefields, where every word becomes a shield and every silence a sword. Yet there's a detail that changes everything. In mindful love, each person cares for themselves before offering care to the other. It's like watering your own roots before sharing the fragrance of your flowers. That awareness changes everything. Because only when we feel whole can we give without fear. Dependency, on the other hand, is born from the desire to control, to shape the other into what we need to soothe our insecurities. It's in the quiet attention to what we feel that the possibility of beginning again arises. Because deep down, true love doesn't ask the other to be the savior of our ghosts. It begins when we understand that to walk together, we first have to walk within ourselves, and then dependency melts away like morning fog, leaving only the lightness of those who choose to love without chains. But what does this reveal about ourselves? Have we learned to love or just to collect absences? When we take a deep breath and release the hands that no longer hold anything, we find that love isn't the fear of losing, but the courage to find ourselves. And in that meeting, dependency loses its meaning, like a story that no longer needs to be told. In the end, mindful love doesn't ask for proof or grand declarations. It shows up in every shared silence, in every look that says, "I see you, even when you're not here." That's the profound difference few notice, and it's right there that everything starts to transform. Because at its heart, to love is to allow the other to be free, while learning to be free ourselves. But there's a detail that many overlook, and it leads us to the next point of reflection. 2. Love in truth. Where there is mindful love, there is truth. Chico Xavier. Truth reveals itself in the smallest corners, like a whisper cutting through the fog of our expectations. In mindful love, there are no half-truths or words spoken just to avoid hurting. There is the courage to look at the other and say, "Here I am, with all my light and all my shadows." But what few understand is that this truth isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like a fire that burns away the masks we wear. This truth isn't shouted or forced. It arises the moment we stop hiding from ourselves. It's the transparency that lets us see and be seen, without embellishment or excuses, in a world where words so easily lose their weight. Mindful love finds strength in quiet honesty, in the gaze that speaks louder than any noisy declaration. But there's a detail that shifts everything. The truth we share in love doesn't come from perfection, but from the messy humanness inside us. Because true love doesn't demand we always have the right answers. It asks that we be brave enough to sit with the questions we're still figuring out. And it's in that space of uncertainty that a relationship becomes real. Mindful love, when spoken in truth, isn't just a balm. It can also be a mirror. It reflects our wounds, our deepest fears, but not to shame us. Rather, to remind us that love, held back by the fear of rejection, only suffocates what might have blossomed. Because truth, even when it stings, is always the richest soil for love to grow. And so you realize that truth isn't a final destination. It's a bridge that connects us to ourselves and to the other, without trying to rewrite the stories that brought us here. In mindful love, truth becomes the seed that sprouts in shared silences, in the gentle touches that don't need to be explained to be felt. But what happens when truth becomes a risk? Many fear that telling it might break the connection, exposing what we'd rather keep hidden. Yet what few know is that the love that survives the truth is the love that truly sets us free. Because when we dare to be honest, we stop living to please old ghosts. And we start building relationships that breathe on their own. And so, truth becomes a gift, not to wound, but to allow the other to see their own reflection in our transparency. Because love that doesn't lie has no need for justification. It lives in the trust of those who know that even when it hurts, truth is always the richest soil for love to grow. But there's something even deeper that many overlook, and this leads us to the next reflection. 3. How spiritual love includes boundaries. Mindful love always respects boundaries. Chico Xavier. Spiritual love doesn't know the tyranny of the ego or the invisible chains that try to bind another's freedom. It's more like a river that flows, respecting the banks that hold it, without losing its strength or its path. But what many forget is that even the river needs boundaries to keep it from overflowing and washing everything away. In the same way, mindful love needs boundaries to protect its essence. These boundaries aren't walls that separate. They're pathways that guide. They let love grow without suffocating, expand without overwhelming. Because love that doesn't honor another's individuality turns into a battlefield where every touch becomes a debt and every silence a threat. Spirituality teaches us that to love doesn't mean erasing the other, but honoring their existence without pretending. But what does it really mean to set boundaries in love? It means listening to that inner voice reminding us that we can't give what we don't have. It means saying no when our heart feels it, even if our mind fears losing what we hold dearest. Because mindful love is built on respect and self-care, not on blind devotion that forgets our own needs. And there lies the true power of spiritual love, in the humility of knowing we're not responsible for another's happiness. We're companions on the path, not saviors. Each of us has to tend our own flame, our own truth. Only then does being together become an act of shared freedom, not a fight to fill emptiness that doesn't belong to us. What few realize is that love that respects boundaries feels like a warm whisper, not a desperate cry. It's the quiet of knowing we can walk beside someone without losing ourselves. Because when boundaries are clear, love doesn't suffocate in dependency or fade away in indifference. It finds its rhythm in the gentle dance of two souls who walk together without erasing themselves. Sometimes setting boundaries can feel like a sacrifice, but in reality, it's an act of mindful love, both for the other and for ourselves. It's the silent promise not to betray our own deepest needs, even when our hearts beat with longing. And in that commitment to ourselves, the real strength of spiritual love is born. But what happens when boundaries blur? When love becomes an excuse to endure what hurts us? That's when spirituality reminds us that without boundaries, love loses its purpose. Because love without borders becomes a mirage, beautiful to look at, but unable to sustain the life flowing within it. But there's something that many people don't see, and this opens the door to the next reflection. 4. Taking care of yourself without abandoning the other. In mindful love, caring for yourself is caring for the other. Chico Xavier. Spiritual love and self-care aren't opposites, even if sometimes we're told they're separate paths. In truth, they're two rivers that weave together, nourishing each other. Taking care of yourself is like breathing, an essential act that doesn't deny sharing, but actually strengthens it. But what many don't realize is that self-care isn't always about giving more. It's often about knowing how to receive, how to listen, and how to honor the silences within. When we forget self-care in the name of love, we become martyrs to a story we never asked to write. We give so much that we lose our roots, and suddenly love becomes an obligation, not a sacred space. Spirituality and mindful love remind us that there's no real union if we're not present for ourselves first. Love then becomes a mirror in which we also see our own reflection. But what does that balance feel like? It's like a gentle breeze on a summer day. It doesn't demand space, but it soothes and refreshes. When we take care of ourselves, when we practice self-care with devotion, we offer the other the most authentic version of ourselves. No longer from a place of lack, but from the fullness of someone who knows they can't support another if they don't support themselves first. Mindful love, far from demanding constant sacrifice, teaches us to place our own needs on the altar of the relationship, not as an act of selfishness, but as a reminder that we can only love freely when we treat ourselves with compassion. Because caring for yourself in the end is an act of respect for the other. We become more generous when our own hearts are at peace. And yet, many fear that self-care is just another word for selfishness. But it's not. Loving doesn't mean losing yourself or giving up what makes you come alive. It means sharing from strength, not from emptiness. When we learn to tend our own inner world, we stop demanding that the other fill our voids, and so love becomes a gift, not a debt. But what happens when we stop caring for ourselves? Love withers slowly, like a flower that forgets to drink the morning dew. The other might try to hold us up, but without strong roots, the bond eventually collapses. Because mindful love knows it only blooms when each person waters their own seeds. And in that quiet act of self-care, everything shifts. And then, love is no longer a chain or an endless sacrifice. It becomes a dance of two souls who walk together without forgetting their own steps. That's where spiritual love and self-care meet, not as opposites, but as two sides of the same heartbeat. The heartbeat of a heart that knows how to love without losing itself along the way. But there's a nuance that transforms everything, and it leads us to the next moment of reflection. 5. Love as freedom, not as a prison sometimes. Mindful love is confused with the idea of possession. But true love doesn't demand chains or eternal vows. It's an open space where each person can breathe their own life and at the same time choose to share it. Because spiritual love, the kind that resonates deep within, doesn't seek to bind, it seeks to free. There's no greater strength than that of two souls who decide to walk together without losing their individuality. Love as freedom feels like the quiet whisper of the wind in an ancient forest. Soft, yet powerful. It doesn't shout to be heard or demand to be felt. It flows with the trust of someone who knows that every step is a choice, not an obligation. And so, mindful love becomes a bridge between two complete worlds, not a golden cage where one forgets their own song. But many people fear that kind of freedom. They think that loving without chains is too risky, a gamble that could lead everything into emptiness. Yet what they don't see is that freedom is the only ground where love can truly grow. Because a heart in chains only beats to survive, while a free heart beats to create, to discover, to share without fear. Mindful love teaches us that we're not here to own the other, but to walk beside them on a sacred journey. We're not here to control, but to accompany. And in that companionship, there's a silent dance of two spirits who choose each other every day. Not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the most powerful force there is. Love that's born from respect and blossoms in freedom. Sometimes, loving as freedom means letting go of the expectations we were taught to carry. It means seeing the other as a whole being, not as the missing half we need to complete us. And it's then that love stops being a burden and becomes a gift. The chance to explore together without losing ourselves in the reflection of the other. Because only when we're free can we offer true love. And what does that freedom feel like? It's like the cool breeze that sweeps through your soul when you're brave enough to let go of your fears. When you understand that loving isn't about locking someone in, it's about expanding. That love isn't the key to a cell, but the open door to endless possibilities. In that space without chains, love stops hurting and starts to heal. And so, mindful love becomes an act of courage. It's not easy to release the need to control or the stories we were told we had to live. But when we do, we discover that real union is born from shared freedom. It's a silent song that says, I'm here and I'm still myself, and that's enough. But there's still a deeper whisper waiting to be heard. And it brings us to the climax of this reflection. And then, everything makes sense, as if every word, every silence, every breath came together in a single moment to reveal the deepest truth. Mindful love isn't a refuge to escape pain. It's a bridge to the freedom of simply being. A space where spirituality and self-care meet to rewrite our stories. In the quiet voice of Chico Xavier, we discover that it's never too late to start again. But are we truly ready to embrace that? Chico Xavier. There's still time to begin again. And maybe that's the deepest truth we uncovered today. That mindful love, spirituality, and self-care aren't luxuries. They're seeds that can transform every corner of our lives. That we still have the power to let go of what holds us back and to embrace what lifts us up. It all begins with a choice to allow ourselves to begin anew. Love, when lived from freedom, becomes a silent song that heals old wounds and awakens the soul. And if you felt that this reflection resonated with you, remember, change isn't a distant destination. It's a step you can take today, here and now. Spiritual love doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It only needs an open heart and the courage to look beyond the shadows. So take care of yourself without forgetting the other. Embrace your truth without fear of boundaries. Because in the end, every new beginning is a reunion with the brightest part of your being. Chico Xavier taught us that it's always possible to start again. All we need is the courage to listen to what life whispers when everything else is quiet. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this reflection touched your heart the most? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the spark that lights someone else's search. And if you want to keep exploring these paths of the soul, I've left a video up here that might nourish your journey even more. Because in the end, the journey never truly ends. It just keeps unfolding.